Now, we were looking at the effects of various parameters on understeer. Remember that vehicle handling, which is what we call as lateral dynamics, which we are looking at, essentially are two things for a driver. One is how does his steering behave, how much steering he has to give, okay, what is the torque on the steering, and so on. And where does that vehicle go, or how does it head? Okay, these are the only two things that the driver is concerned with, right? So how much angle he gives in the steering angle and so on. Of course, this can be measured, and that's what we call it as objective characterization of the vehicle handling. So let's complete a few of the other things that has an effect on what is called understeer, and quickly run through what is the effect of steering on handling, so that by next class or after that, you will be ready with all the answers that I may ask you as to how you will test a car if you go and buy a car. What are the tests that should be done? Okay. If you are now an expert in vehicle dynamics, what would be the test? In other words, what would be the logical subjective questions that you would ask if you were to buy a car? Okay. So keep all these things in mind, so that when I ask those questions 2 days from now, you will be able to answer the question as to what all you will do with a car. Right. We were looking at, we were halfway through in that derivation, where we were looking at the role of the vehicle, the role, R-O-L-L, okay, not R-O-L-E, role of the vehicle. Now, what we are essentially doing now is to look at all those things that is going to affect my delta, that in other words the steering angle, or in other words the understeer characteristics. As I said, because driver is concerned with delta, right? So I'm going to put down all those things which are going to have an effect on delta. The first effect we were looking at is what is called as the load transfer. Remember that we did not have that as a part of the degree of freedom in our model. So we are looking at load transfer. This also gives a very good insight as to what happens. I'm just going to recapitulate this. There's a small, 1-2 difference in between what we had done and what, say, for example, Gillespie's book has. So let us be very clear on that. Okay. That's the front roll stiffness. Rear roll stiffness, you know what they are, half into Ks into S squared and so on, right? We said that if this were to be an independent suspension, then S is taken to be the T, the track. Phi is the roll. Note that body being stiff, it rolls through only one angle. There is no twist of the, there's no torsional stiffness. Please note that you will do this in the next course on automotive structures. The torsional stiffness over a period of time has increased tremendously, and this has helped handling as well. So torsional stiffness of the body is very important. It's increased magnitudes of difference, 10 folds, even 50 folds over a period of time. So we found out what is the role. Okay, essentially what is that we are doing? We are finding out what is delta F Z. So here is what I just wanted to tell you. This we wrote down, okay, and this we called as delta F Z F by 2. In other words, we call this to be delta F Z, and this is delta F Z by 2. I think there was a small confusion because in Gillespie, this is what is called, this divided by 2 is what is called as delta F Z. Okay. Doesn't matter, but as long as you understand what we mean, these equations are very straightforward. There is nothing much, right? Any questions on this? Okay, that is the load transfer between the outer and the inner, right? So I'm rearranging that equation. I'm bringing that to the left hand side, okay, and we know that Fy is nothing but Wf, say for example Fy front is Wf into V squared by Rg, and that's what I'm substituting it here, and I am instead of H I am putting Hf. So I am specializing this equation for the front as well as for the rear. So this is a general expression which we derived, and that expression we are specializing for the front and the rear. Right? This is what we did in the last class, and we continued, of course, by assuming a distribution for, or an equation for C alpha f, and then we further went down to understand what is delta, right? So how did we write that expression? Fy is equal to C alpha into alpha, and C alpha we wrote down. Okay. Please note again, I'm telling you that nonlinearity is with respect to z. Okay. There's anyway we assumed a linear model. Okay, and so we had put here this. But if you want to do this whole thing with, say, a Paseka model or a magic formula model, it doesn't matter. Then this won't come up. Then you can substitute that very more accurately. So how did we write this? We wrote this as AFZ minus B into FZ squared, and that's how we wrote C alpha multiplied by alpha. Right? Please again note that since we collapsed the left and the right tire into one tire, the C alpha which we will be using is 2 times the C alpha of individual tires. Okay, so it's 2 times. So when you are given a problem, be very careful on that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is to substitute this. Okay, whatever is done here. So if I have to look at the front tire, then what is that I should do? A into, I should say what is the front outer and front inner, and so let me call this delta f zf by 2 as, say, delta f z with a superscript 1. Okay, just to show that this is divided by 2, or else there's a 2 which enters and bothers us. I'll write that like that. Okay, so what I have to do is to substitute fz outer, okay, that is for the front, plus fz outer is what I should substitute here, that I'll substitute it as wf is actually fz plus delta f z 1 minus b into fz. Fz is actually, what is that? Wf by 2. It is the normal force acting on each of the tires, minus b into fz squared, fz plus delta fz 1 whole squared. Okay, that is for the outer. So let me call that as outer tires, and then I have to add the inner tire. Okay, that is A into fz I. Okay, the inner tire, which would become now, what is that? Look at that. So fz I becomes minus delta fz which is the same as delta fz outer, the same thing. So I would say delta fz into delta fz outer 1 minus b into fz minus delta fz outer 1 whole square into alpha. Okay. If you do not want to put this as an outer, okay, you can just remove it and say that it is fz. It doesn't matter. If you do not want to put that, that's also fine. Fz. Because fz outer is nothing but wf by 2. Now we will simplify this and ultimately get fyf front and fyr. The same thing we will do with fyr as well. Right? So what are we trying to do? We have an equation. We are substituting for the outer and the inner for fz, summing them up. That's all. Right? So I'm going to write down the final equation. Check, do that yourself. There's nothing, there's only algebraic equation. Now let me take that, one of that 1 minus 2b into delta f z delta f zf1 whole squared divided by c alpha f, and that can be written as 1 by c alpha f into 1 plus 2b into delta f zf 1 whole squared by c alpha f. Let me explain this.
Can you please explain that expression F5, like how did it come from there?
This one? Yeah. So we have Fy, this is a general expression. Okay. If I have to put front, I have to put Fyf is equal to C alpha f into alpha f. And if I have to put rear, C alpha Fyr is equal to C alpha r into. So what is the C alpha f expression? C alpha f expression is for a tire, which is A into Fz minus B Fz squared. Okay. This is for a tire, right? So now when I want to look at the front Fyf, that is the front tire or the front of the car, front two tires lateral force, okay, which is Fyf, then what should I do? I have to substitute, I will get the sum of two tires contribution, okay. So this first one is the outer tires contribution, and the second one is the inner tires contribution, okay, multiplied by alpha. Note that this is a bicycle model, and so we are compressing both tires or replacing two tires with respect to one tire. The same expression I'm going to have for the rear. Okay, so I will write down, that's why I said I'm not going to write down that, it's, we're running out of time, so you can do the same thing there. Okay, here you will replace it by C alpha r and so on. Clear? Yeah, 50, what is 57.3? I'm replacing radians by angles. Okay, because usually these are expressed in terms of, these alphas are expressed in terms of angles. Okay, so I'm converting L by R, radians, into angles, that's all. Right? Okay, so then what I'm doing is, this is the expression I get. What is that expression? Go back and look at my expression for delta. What was the delta expression? L by R plus alpha f minus alpha r, and that was what was written as Wf by C alpha f minus Wr by C alpha r. Remember that we wrote it in that fashion, okay? And that now what I am trying to do is to, since I find out this, and then I'm now getting that alpha f and substituting that, I'm simplifying this. You simplify this, you will get that, you will see that that's the expression you would get. The C alpha f now is the total C alpha f for one tire. Okay, clear? So now what I'm going to do, look at this expression. This expression is different. What is the difference in this expression? This expression had, in the previous case, it had Wf by C alpha f minus Wr by C alpha r multiplied by V squared by Rg, which is Ay outside. Okay. Now I'm going to do a small jugglery. Now that expression has changed, I have denominator. So I'm going to now simplify the denominator so that I will be able to separate out things and understand it. Right. So it is 1 by C alpha f, I'm taking out 1 by 1 minus x. Okay, which can be expressed as 1 plus x squared by 2 factorial and so on. So in other words, 1 plus x plus higher order terms. Removing the higher order terms, this term is written as 1 plus x. Okay. Now, so for this term I'm going to replace it, for this term I'm going to replace it, and I'm going to write down now a delta term. Clear? That's all I'm doing. There's nothing very difficult. So in other words, that delta now becomes 57.3 L by R plus WF by C alpha F minus WR by C alpha R plus I'm going to have additional terms. What are the additional terms? WF, note that these are the additional terms. Clear? Any questions? So what is that I should write? Plus, let me put a bracket here, WF into 2B into delta F ZF whole squared divided by C alpha F, this outside C alpha F, multiplied by that C alpha F, minus, I will have a term like this for the rear, right? So that rear would be minus WR into 2B into delta F Z R1 whole squared divided by C alpha R into C alpha R, the whole thing multiplied by AY. Clear? Nothing great. Simple jugglery. Okay, check whether you have written it correctly, I have written it correctly, all these things. If you have doubt, let's look at Gillespie. Now, what has happened? The term ended here, but now I have an additional term. Additional term. Okay. Now interpret that additional term. That is the most important thing. Now interpret the additional terms, how you will, those things you will interpret it. In terms of design, simple things. We're not going to, unfortunately in this course we won't have time to convert this handling characteristics into design. Okay, we will try to do that in the next course, but let's interpret that. How do you interpret this? This interpretation is based on two things. What are they? They are of course based on delta ZF, that is the change here. Okay, and that is affected by what? That is affected by that expression. So that is affected by this. Okay, let us take the front, that and this of course. Okay, let us take the front. Okay, what happens if the front stiffness, suspension stiffness increases? Interpret that. What happens when the front suspension stiffness increases? This increases, which means that this increases. Okay, then so this increases and hence the vehicle becomes understeer, right? So that's the first thing. The vehicle becomes understeer. So if you put a torsion bar or a stabilizing bar where the stiffness, front stiffness increases, then the vehicle will become more understeer. Right? After all, we are interpreting understeer in terms of delta, the steering angle that has to be given. One of the factors that is important is what? The next thing that is important here. One is of course the stiffness. The other thing is what's important. So the roll center height. Right. Now what happens when the roll center, so this is the front of the vehicle, let's say that that's the vehicle, Okay. The roll axis, okay, inclination is one of the issues in the design. The roll axis can be inclined like this, the roll axis can be inclined like this, and so on. Right. Now, if the roll axis is inclined with nose down, as they call it, what happens? If nose down, the roll would produce more delta Fz in the rear, right? Because the height, that's what causes the roll. So which means that this guy is going to be higher, and so the vehicle is going to be more oversteer. Okay, so this is how you interpret it. Okay, so the first thing is that the roll causes a change in the understeer oversteer characteristics. Okay, remember that when you take a turn, you give a steering, and then the vehicle realizes that it is taking a turn, and then the roll happens, and the roll happens with some time. So there is a transient region, okay, when the body was straight, and as you take a turn, the body actually rolls. So then afterwards it may settle down into a steady state when you are taking a steady state cornering. So there is a transient region under which the roll, which was 0, will take on a value. So in other words, the oversteer or understeer characteristics of the vehicle, or let me say the understeer gradient of the vehicle, would now change from one value to another value as you roll, or as you go into a maneuver. People sometimes call this as a transient understeer or a transient oversteer, because in the transient region between running straight and taking a turn, okay, the roll develops. It's not that immediate, as soon as you give the steering, it's not that the roll is immediately going to, it's going to take time. So it's going to develop as you travel. So there is a transient oversteer and a transient understeer, okay. Depending upon when you come out, similarly the roll will come back, okay, the effects will be opposite. Right. So these are transient regions. That's number one. Okay. We're going to talk more about it. So this is one of the things which you would look at when you look at a vehicle. Right. There are many such effects. We'll quickly go through all of them. Okay. Now, this is clear. We'll move out. So this is due to the roll. The roll also produces two effects. Okay, the two more effects that are important. One of the effects is what is called as the roll steer. Remember, the vehicles have two things. One is toe, and the other is camber, apart from what we call as caster, okay, and so on. Let's now look at these two things, okay, and understand what happens. After all, the suspension is a mechanism. You used the theories of mechanisms in order to analyze, for example, a MacPherson strut. It's a mechanism. So when there is a roll, okay, there is a change in camber, which we would separately deal with, as well as a change in the angle of the wheel. Okay, in other words, there's a change in, if you want to call it, change in toe. Okay, right? Now, how much it changes? Very, very important. Okay, and what is this? Let's understand this clearly. Let us say that yes.
Estimate height of roll center.
We will see that in the next course. See, unfortunately, that as I said, I'm going to do that suspension design in the next course. Unfortunately, we don't have time. Okay, roll center can be determined by geometric part, or if you just use one of the softwares, you will get it in no time.
So you don't get affected dynamically.
Yeah, good question. Okay, that's a better question for this course. Okay, yeah. One of the concerns of people who design, vehicle dynamics, are how does many of these factors change dynamically. For example, the roll axis, does it change? Designers ensure that this does not change. Okay, roll axis does not change, roll centers do not, they want to ensure. So they would look at this dynamically, okay, either in a software like Adams or one of them, okay, or they will measure it. So many of them, they will measure it. You've hit the correct point. For example, roll steer. Okay, what happens during roll or during roll? Okay, you have the wheels with a certain what's called toe. All of you know that it's a toe in or toe out, right? Now, because of this suspension kinematics, okay, when you take a turn and when there is a roll, the linkages change. Let's say that it's assume it to be a 4-bar linkage, okay, that is connecting the wheel, and then because of the roll, these linkages move. After all, they are attached to the body, and so they start moving. So when they move, the vehicles or the wheels attitude also changes, right? So when I now take a turn to the right, okay, and look at the front, okay, it's going to have an effect both in the front and the rear. And when I take a turn to the right, and let us look at the front wheels, and if the front wheels change of attitude because of the roll happens to be like this, okay, this is what we call as roll steer, okay. When it changes, then what would happen? Without you giving an input, actually the vehicle would try to go in the other direction, whereas you want to go in this direction. So what would you do? You have to give more delta in order to compensate for this roll. So this is the thing that, as you said, dynamically toe will change. So people are always worried as to how much toe changes because of roll. Okay, you will do that in the next semester for vehicle dynamics lab. Okay, keep all these things in mind, and when you do that lab, you look at, you're going to design a suspension and look at actually how toe changes. Let us say that, let me put that epsilon is the coefficient for the toe change, okay, or understeer coefficient because of steering. Interestingly, look at the rear now. Okay, the rear, if you understand how that rear turning is, okay, suppose you have a rear steered vehicle, okay, you will, so that's the rear, that's the front, okay, you would actually turn it the other way, and this you would turn it this way. So if I now take a turn to the right, and if my rear suspensions are such that the wheel turns to the left, what is that I would get? Good for me as far as delta is concerned. In other words, I would get a oversteer effect. Oversteer effect. Okay? Clear? No? Yeah. So now look at this very carefully. When I take a turn to the right, the roll is to the left. Okay? The roll is to the left. Vice versa. Okay? So if the roll is to the left and to the left, now right now I'm this is the one. Okay? The roll is to the left, And if this wheel happens to now go along with me to the left, okay, that would cause a oversteer. Okay, so I would put a positive epsilon. Clear?
Sir, while turning right, why is the roll towards left?
Of course. That's the fundamental. No? When you take a turn to the left, the centripetal force is acting. That's okay. Right. So we will define, like what Gillespie has defined. We would define epsilon f, okay, to be degree. That is, we will say epsilon f minus epsilon r into d phi by day, where this is. So we would say that the delta that is affected is something like this multiplied by ay. So we define the understeer or the roll steer coefficient, as I would call it, okay, to be degree per degree multiplied by, this is the roll, multiplied by roll per ay. Remember, why is that I am doing all this? Because I have outside ay. So what comes inside this bracket? This is what comes inside the bracket. Right? So this is what is the understeer. Whatever is coming inside is what is the understeer gradient, okay, which we called as K2, if you remember, in one of our earlier classes, and that's what would go into that expression. Okay. Clear? Any questions? So this is called as the roll steer. So people actually plot how toe varies as you roll. Okay. That's a part of your exercise in the next course, so don't worry about it right now. But you would look at that closely. Ideally speaking, I do not want the toe to vary and give me surprises. Okay. So this is the next effect. In fact, recent studies have shown that toe effect, or in other words, the roll steer effect, is more important than the next effect, which I would say is the effect on camber. The effect on camber. What? Yeah.
In the previous expression, what exactly was special?
Yeah, that is the coefficient. Okay, that's what you will determine by doing a theoretical kinematic analysis, okay, or a KNC test rig. Okay, there are KNC test rigs. Go and look at that in the YouTube or in Google for KNC, kinematic and compliance. So this is called as kinematic and compliance test rigs. Okay, what you do is to put the vehicle on this test rig and then measure how much toe changes, camber changes, and all that. This you do it in the static case, and there are techniques by which we will show later that you can measure them in the dynamic case as well. So in other words, there are sensors which would measure these changes. The other, if toe changes, camber has to follow. Camber also changes. Okay. So what is the effect of camber change? There is an effect. Why? Because if you remember, we introduced a term called camber thrust. Remember that we introduced an effect called camber thrust. Right? Remember that this was due to the deformation of tire, okay? Because when you roll a tire with camber, that introduced camber thrust. In other words, if this were to be the camber, I'm just exaggerating it, cambers are very close to zero in most of the modern cars, okay? Close to about 0.5 to 0.75 in many of the trucks. So that would result in a force F. Fortunately, radial tires camber thrust is very small, so approximate calculations show that about 10 to 15 degrees of camber variation would produce a force equal to that produced by 1 degree of slip angle. Okay, produced by 1 degree of slip angle. Right. So the camber thrust produces a force, and that force is now going to be a force which I have to look at closely. Why? Because after all, the most important equation here is this equation. So from where we got all those things. So now the force that is generated is due to two things. One is C alpha into alpha plus, let's say that there's a graph for the force Fy versus gamma, which I would say is a camber angle. Then let's say that's the gamma. Okay, so C gamma into gamma. Right. So this again varies or produces variations in this whole derivations which we had given here, and so that would introduce further variations in our understeer and oversteer. Right? Okay. So the derivation is quite simple. I would like to skip that and would refer to Gillespie for further. This is about 4-line derivation. Because we are running out of time. So I'm going to only write down the final expression, okay, and refer to Gillespie's book for this derivation, because there's a very straightforward expression, very nicely done in that book. So when I introduce that, so let me introduce a term called. So let's say that gamma is the camber angle. So let me call dou gamma by dou phi is equal to the camber gradient. Okay, and write down the final expression straight away. No big deal. I have written this. Write it for front, write it for rear, write this down in terms of AY, okay, and then rearrange it. So that would become 57.3 into L by R by C alpha F. Of course, this is our good old tire understeer gradient plus C gamma F by C alpha F into dou gamma F by dou phi minus C gamma R by C alpha R into dou gamma R by dou phi. The whole thing multiplied by dou phi by dou AY into AY. Okay, so again, so here we have not included this roll term. You know, if I have to take into account the roll, then I will introduce that as well. Here we are only looking at the effect due to camber alone. Okay, so when you want to have a complete understeer gradient, then you have to add the effect of each one of them. So this is the effect due to camber change. So we have roll steer, and now we have due to camber. Right? The problem is that many times it's not, this gradient is not linear. So if you now really look at how the camber changes, and plot this graph, tire going up and in, so the graph may not be like this, I mean maybe something like this, okay, or the other way about, it may be like this and so on. So it is not necessarily a very linear graph. Nevertheless, okay, there is an expression, and this becomes an important factor. The camber change becomes an important factor. Okay. Second to, as we see many of the measurements that are done, second to that roll steer, this becomes important. Of course, this becomes quite important as well. Okay. One of the other things, so we are looking at how each one of them that are members of the suspension are changing the understeer. Okay. Many of them are transient, that's why I introduced the term called transient understeer or transient oversteer. Okay. They may or may not. See, the whole problem is if you drive in a very calm fashion at 40 kilometers per hour, we are not talking about any of these effects. But if your speeds increase, that's where trouble starts, then these transient effects become important. Unless you are very alert, the amount of steering you give now depends upon this transient effect. That's why we are looking at these things closely. As I said, kinematics and compliance. We had looked at kinematic changes. There are other effects due to compliance. What is this compliance of the suspension system? The compliance comes from the rubber bushings, okay, or things which are going to deform, introduced for various purposes to isolate vibrations and so on in the suspension system. Okay, that's why it's called kinematic. Always it goes together, kinematics and compliance. Now, kinematic and compliance plays a role, and next this is what is called as the compliance effect. Okay, what is the effect of this compliance? What do you think would be the effect of compliance? I said lateral compliance, so obviously this. Can you just imagine, suppose I have, this is the, so let's say that, I mean I'm just putting this, doesn't matter whether it's a independent suspension, let's say that, you can consider that as an independent suspension. Okay, let's say that this is the, say yaw, let's say that this is a rear tire. Okay. Now, this is going to take a turn like that, which means that there is going to be a force that's acting in this direction. Right? Now, if the force so happens acts, and if there are deformations, okay, due to which the tire now is deflected, say for example this whole thing is deflected like this, okay, again it's going to have an effect on, obviously, on the understeer gradient. Whatever has an effect on the wheel, how it's going to move, okay, it is going to have an effect on the understeer gradient. Right. This is what is called as a lateral compliance steer. Now, will it cause an understeer or oversteer? Well, that depends, because this would act both in the front as well as in the rear. Okay. So, if it acts, suppose this is the rear, and if this is what you are going to do, fine, this would cause an oversteer. On the other hand, if this happens to be behind, okay, and you're taking a turn and the wheels go towards the left, when you're taking a turn to the right, then that would cause understeer. Sorry, first one is oversteer and the second one is understeer. First one, because you want the rear to go like this for making your turn easy. So when it turns to this, it is, I think I slipped, this is an oversteer. If this happens to be the front and the yaw happens to be at the rear, and if you're going to now take a turn like that and your wheels are now towards the left, then you have to give more steering in order to steer that back, and so you would cause understeer. Remember, delta increases, understeer increases. This is due to lateral compliance steer. Okay? This is, so there are two things. One is front lateral compliance steer due to front, and the other is rear lateral compliance steer. So front lateral compliance steer and rear lateral compliance steer. Right? So again, this is introduced as a coefficient. Okay, we will follow Gillespie on this, and so we will introduce this coefficient as A, and let me call that A to be delta C by Fy. Okay, so that delta CF, delta C of course is the steer angle which you get out of this. So delta CF is equal to AF in the front, WF into AY. So that the lateral compliance steer of the front and the rear together on the understeer gradient can be written as AF into WF minus AR into WR. The sign of which is obvious because of all the explanation which I had done so far. Clear? So the compliances become, in fact, some of our work which we had done, if I have time, we will present it, show that, I will also quote a paper in the next class, show that this is a very important parameter. Front lateral compliance steer seems to be a very important parameter in K. So I'm adding, one more is added. Okay? So understeer gradient, we started with only one term, we added second term here, we added third term due to roll steer, we added a fourth term due to camber, we're going to add now a fifth term due to lateral compliance steer. So that's why K and C measurement, as they are called, becomes extremely important. Clear? Now, the story doesn't end there. Right, I won't hold you for long, and stop you from having your lunch. What do you think is the other effect? Answer that question, you're free to go and have lunch. What do you think are the other effects? No, that is, we had talked about pull already, and where it acts is what we call as lateral compliance steer. But there is, see, this load transfer seems to be the first major thing. So what is the other thing that is going to cause load transfer? Correct. So traction or braking is going to cause now load transfer. Okay? So this load transfer would again redistribute alpha F and alpha R. Okay? And is going to have an effect on the understeer gradient. It's so important that there are tests to do this. Imagine that if, obviously there's going to be a change, we'll see that in the next class, what the change is. Imagine that you're taking a turn and you're applying brakes. So there's a redistribution of forces, because of which there's a redistribution or there's a change in alphas. And when there are changes in alpha, obviously you will feel a different steering input is required. Okay? So that's the next effect. And lastly, steering itself has its own problems, or problems in the sense that they also contribute. Okay, compliances of the steering also has an effect. We'll talk about these two, this load transfer and the steering effect, okay, in the next class.